evening, everyone. Welcome to the third author interaction of the 2025 NLF Reading Challenge. My name is Zainab, and I hope you are as excited to be here as I am. Before we begin the interaction, let me give you a brief introduction about the NLF Reading Challenge, followed by a few housekeeping rules for today's session. The NLF Reading Challenge is a 3-month-long reading event from May to August 2025 for students between grades 4 to 6. It runs on the competitive as well as the non-competitive tracks. For the challenge, students read their way through a curated set of 30 books. They discuss their reading with their friends and their guide, log their thoughts, and get to interact with the authors of some of these books online. For today's event, please use the Q&A box to type out your questions or your responses to what's being discussed during the session. If you're from a school, please mention the name of your school along with your question. Today, we are privileged to have with us the award-winning author, Menaka Raman. Menaka Raman is the author of a number of books for children, including Gappu Can't Dance, Topi Rockets from Tumba, Ira Investigates the Invisible, and How to Reach Mars and Other Impossible Things. Her book, Loki Takes Guard, won the 2021 Value of Words Award for writing for young adults. Her book, How to Win an Election, A Most Unreliable Guide, won the 2024 Atagalata Bangalore Literature Festival Book Prize in the Children's Fiction category. Menaka's short stories have appeared in anthologies published by Penguin, Speaking Tiger, and Scholastic India. She has written on parenting and children's books for some of India's leading newspapers. Menaka joins us today to speak about her book, How to Win an Election, A Most Unreliable Guide, which is on the reading list of the challenge. Welcome, Menaka. We're very happy to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, Zainab, and thank you for all these amazing readers who have joined us to talk about the book. This is really exciting.
Would you like to begin the session with a short reading from the book?
Absolutely, I would love to do that. So I'm going to read a little bit from maybe the first chapter of the book, since I'm not sure where everyone is with the book, and just so that there are no spoilers for anyone. So this is from the book opening, and it starts like this. Refusing to do homework on the grounds it constitutes child cruelty and unpaid child labor, caught leaving school premises with handcrafted imported white pebbles from the driveway, defacing aforementioned handcrafted imported white pebbles with inaccurately drawn parts of the human body, defacing a classmate's property with the line, "You are a monkey's armpit on a baboon," interrupted Sachin. "What?" Habiba ma'am said, lowering the file she was holding by a millimeter and glaring at Sachin over the top. She hated it when people interrupted her, her children, her husband, her mother-in-law, but most especially students. "I wrote, 'You are a baboon's armpit' on Ruhan Gupta's gym bag, ma'am," Sachin explained patiently, "not a monkey's armpit. Whatever you called him, there is 4 discipline slips already, and school just reopened a month ago. Since the start of your learning journey here at Primus Academy, you have managed to accumulate a total of 52 discipline slips to your name. 52! I don't think we've ever had a student with such a poor record of discipline in the history of the school." Habiba ma'am droned on and on about the school's illustrious history and reputation, and Sachin felt his attention begin to wane, which he knew from his past run-ins with the middle school coordinator was not a good thing. "Sachin, are you listening to me?" Habiba ma'am barked, rapping the table with her knuckles. "Yes, ma'am."
Thank you, Menaka. I think we might have had a small technical glitch in between, but I'm glad we're back in action.
Okay.
What a perfect scene to start off with. So before I get into my questions, since we were reading an excerpt from Habiba ma'am, we have a question that came in from the live audience just now.
Okay.
From Arunima Chowdhury, grade 5, the Sri Ram School, Vasant Vihar, New Delhi, who asks, when you told us that Sachin could not stand for the elections, most readers had sympathy for him. But if you had been Habiba ma'am, would you have let him enter the elections with 52 discipline slips?
I really want to be cool and say, yeah, totally. I would have let Sachin stand for elections. And yeah, maybe I would have. I think it's good to have some some outliers and some wild cards in elections, just to kind of make it a little more interesting and exciting for everyone. But I also think I would have had a big uphill fight with like other teachers in the school to allow that to happen. So yeah, I think Sachin should have been allowed to stand. All of these rules, who needs them?
All right, so we've perfectly set the stage for all the shenanigans that ensue during election season at Primus Academy. Let's begin today's discussion with some ideas you keep coming back to in your work: freedom, fairness, and autonomy. In your novel, Loki Takes Guard, the protagonist stands up for herself when her wish to join the local cricket team is denied due to her gender. In your most recent picture book for Pratham, The Freedom Sisters, a young girl goes on to form a marching band after the local bandmaster discourages her from playing the drums. You also co host a podcast called City of Women, where you explore how Indian women navigate urban spaces in order to have fun and feel free. What role did these ideas of freedom and autonomy play in the making of How to Win an Election?
Wow, thank you. That's such a great question. I think to answer this, I want to go back to an article I once read. It was an interview with Mo Willems in the New York Times, I think. And, he's, for the readers here, you might have read the Piggy and Elephant books. You might have read The Pigeon Doesn't Want to Go to Sleep. I can't, that series, Nuffle Bunny, which are all books that I loved reading to my kids growing up and would read and reread. And much later, when I started writing books for children, I read this interview with him. And the interview was called something like, parents, Mo Willems wants you to know that he's not on your side, or something quite provocative like that. But in it, he says that it's really hard being a child, and because children have such little freedom in their day-to-day lives. And it really made me pause and think about that. And it's so true, because I think for young people, they have such little choice and decisions are being made for them all the time, very often by adults who love them and who care for them and who want the best for them, whether it's their parents, teachers, grandparents, some neighborhood auntie. But I don't think neighborhood aunties always know what's best for you, but they're making choices for you on what time you have to wake up, what to eat for breakfast, when you should go to sleep, how much TV do you get to watch, which school do you go to, what extracurricular activities do you do. And these are decisions that are being made for you constantly. And it can be really hard for a young person to assert what they want, because that's usually met by, but what do you know? You're just a child. And I know what's best because I've already lived this life of, so many years, and I just, grown ups know better. So I think I find that really interesting, that it's very hard for young people to be able to have that agency and voice sometimes, in the face of this. And you don't even know sometimes that you can say, I don't want this. I mean, and you spoke about City of Women, the podcast. We interviewed someone earlier this year who said, something had happened in her life and she was talking to her sibling about it when she was an adult. And the sibling said, but why didn't you tell us you felt that way? And she said, I didn't know I could. And it's such a simple thing. But these are all the things. And, as a child, I was very obedient. I was a very obedient, and my way of dealing with authority was to comply to authority and to always kind of, okay, I'm just going to do what I'm told because I don't want to, shake the status quo. I don't want to disrupt things about me. I want to keep everyone happy. So I think now as I write for children and as an adult writing that, I think I'm writing for that person I used to be, that child I used to be. And it's kind of me imagining what it might have looked like for me to push certain boundaries, for me to ruffle feathers, and for me to kind of not always, do what I was told. So yeah, I think that's why I keep revisiting some of these things.
Thank you for that response, Menaka. So, picking up the thread about student voice and agency, there's an interesting contrast set up between democracy as an ideal and democracy in practice throughout the book. Most adults in the book, with a few notable exceptions, of course, champion the school elections as a space for students to make their voices heard. But we also see that Sachin's parents have never voted in the national or state elections, while Vamsi sir believes in rather alarming policies such as limiting who gets to vote in the country's elections. Why was it important for you to portray the many conflicting ideas and beliefs that people have about democracy as a form of governance?
Yeah. I think because all these contrasting opinions do exist in the real world. I think when we learn about democracy in school, we learn that this is the form of government that here in India we practice, this is accepted, this is why it's good. And we kind of see that one form of it presented to us. But in the real world, there are so many opinions, so many thoughts on these things. And a lot of these were things that I had encountered myself in conversations with people. And I also found it very interesting that in conversations, people would talk a lot about their rights, like as citizens, these are our rights, or as, people who work over here, these are our rights. And rights are so important. But then the conversation around what our duties are, we sometimes don't really seem to have, like, what are the duties that we have to perform as good citizens of this country? What do we need to do? And so very often I would hear people talking about their rights and, the state of the city and the state of the nation. But have you ever voted? In elections? No. Have you ever, and here I want to include, I mean, I voted, but like, have you ever done something as part of a collective or community to change some of those things? Possibly not. But we feel we are still very entitled to all of these things. So this kind of thing of adults, and I love asking kids this in school sessions. I ask them, so we had elections, you know, last year or this year if I'd done the session, how many of you know if your parents voted in the elections? And did you talk to them? What kind of conversations did you have? So I think that exists. And when writing the book, I was reading like a lot of old research papers, and there are some very alarming thoughts on who should be allowed to vote, who is the what kind of qualifications should you have to display that you are of a certain amount of intellect to be able to vote and have opinions, and what kind of a job do you have, and those are also problematic because that then equates intellect or knowledge or understanding of the world around you with a degree or with a certain kind of amount of money or job or socioeconomic standing. And there are people who think that even today, if you have, conversations with maybe on a family WhatsApp group chat, you might come across some of these opinions. So I think I really wanted to just drop those into the book and not dwell on them, not have my opinion that I think this is right or this is wrong, but just kind of leave them so that maybe the reader might want to talk to about it with someone or think about it for themselves, or just think about the runaway lizard. I don't know, but yeah, that's why I kind of put that in.
Thank you for that, Menaka. Now that we know how complicated elections can be, we have a question from two students. Himaya Doon, a grade 5 student from Strawberry Fields High School, Chandigarh, and Arshia Upadhyaya, a grade 5 student from Nave Academy, Bangalore. Both of them are competing in their school elections this year, and they would like to ask you if you have any reliable advice to share on winning elections.
Okay, Kimaya, Arshia, all the best. Again, I don't know if this is reliable or unreliable advice, but I think it's one thing I've seen in my the book was a result of a conversation with my children about elections in their school. And every year at the start of the new academic year, there is always some discussion at the dining table about who is standing, who is deserving of this, whose speech was good, whose campaign slogan is rubbish, whatever. There's a lot of conversation. And one thing I've seen is that I think some candidates say things that they think they should be saying, that they think people want to hear them say to make them seem like a good candidate. And then one problem is that really who you are? Is that what you really believe in? Or are you saying that because you just want to be voted? And which is, a fair choice. But the problem then is it might not reflect who you really are and what you want to do. And then I think sometimes then everyone kind of tends to sound the same. Everyone's saying the same thing, but in a slightly different way. So I think if I haven't had advice, it would be um, to be true to yourself, but also try and be memorable. So I think in the book that's kind of shown because, Sachin comes up with Taco Tuesdays, which is completely like some weird, wacky, idea that, and everyone else is talking about rights and, this, that, and gender rights and sports and stuff like that. So he's being memorable that way. And I think Minnie is really true to herself she's writing things on recycled paper and putting it up. And when she has conversations with students, it's about, ikigai, and we need to compost the food waste. And she's being herself. That is, she's not also letting like Sachin completely sway her and turn her into this other person. I think three, if you can find yourself a campaign manager as mean as kind of as great as Sachin, then you should really go out and look for that. But good luck to both of you, and I hope you win.
Thank you for that, Menaka. I'm sure Kimaya and Arshia both appreciate that advice. On that light-hearted note, let's talk about how humor is an important aspect of your work. How to Win an Election has situations that are funny because they're so wildly outrageous, like a Bengal monitor lizard ruining a candidate's nomination papers. There are also instances in the book where the humor comes from a character's observations, such as this moment after Sachin's jacket gets confiscated by Arlene Ma'am. The likelihood of getting something back from this box was entirely dependent on Arlene Ma'am's mood, how much she despised you, and how the planets were aligned at the very second you went to grovel for your confiscated item to be returned. Here, you've used exaggeration for dramatic and comedic effect. Could you share some other strategies you rely on when writing humor?
Oh, wow. I'm going to let everyone in on a secret is that I use humor in real life and in my writing to get people and readers to like me. That is why I do it. I think I'm always trying to kind of crack jokes. I'm sure it's very tiresome for people who meet me in the real world. I'm always trying to crack jokes and see if I can make people laugh. If there's an awkward pause in the conversation, I'm likely to say something silly and ridiculous or whatever, and just to get a laugh out of people. And I think that's why I use them why I try and use a lot of humor in my books, because I think then that's a way of getting the reader to be like, oh, this is funny, this is a good joke, this is a good moment. Maybe there are more jokes and moments like this in the book, and kind of keep them reading. Because I think as a writer today, I'm very aware that I'm competing with so many other things for my readers' attention. Cool things they have to do, school, homework, tuition, classes, YouTube, Valorant, I don't know what it is. So I'm using humor as this way to kind of, hey, like me, be friends with my book. And there are more jokes in the book. And if you found it funny so far, I hope you'll keep reading. And the humor I kind of like to use is a lot of it is fairly, yeah, it's dramatic, it's silly, it's a little over the top. Um, and it's a bit out there sometimes, and it's a bit nuts. And then, like with I don't know if you've all come to that bit later, but there's a brownies incident in the book. There's the lizard. There's all sorts of things. There's some mild theft from certain people's homes, which shocks everybody. And I just think I use them too because it's fun. I like that kind of humor in what I liked watching when I was growing up. And then I think, yeah, then there's also the characters. One of my favorite bits in the book is where Sachin is doing some maths homework, and he's doing a sum on rational numbers, and then he gets a joke about irrational numbers and he makes a note of it. It's like I just like using humor also to tell the reader about the character and what they are like. So yeah, but for me, then humor is I don't know if I'll ever be able to write a serious. So
Yeah. That's a wonderful insight into your process, Menaka. Since we were talking about writing and descriptions, we have a question from Inara Alia Akbar, a grade 5 student from the Sri Ram School, Vasant Vihar, New Delhi, who asks, if you were to describe yourself as a character in the story, in terms of who you are in real life, who would that be and why?
hi Nara. Um, though I don't think I was ever as hardworking and as smart as Meenakshi is, as Minnie is. I think I identify with a lot of her. She has to. Everyone has to be happy with her. Everyone has to be okay with her. She is very hardworking. She's very earnest. She has these perfectionist tendencies, which are not good. Do not advocate for it at all. But I think there is a lot of her. She wants her mom to be proud of her. I still, at my age, want my mom to be proud of me. So I think Minnie is someone who great grades. I didn't have an Ivy League college mood board over my bed at any point of time. But I think some of those things apart, there's a lot of Minnie that I identify with. Yeah, and I think I wish I could be Sachin, but
All right. So, since we were talking about characters in the book, one thing that I particularly liked is that there's quite a bit of flipping of societal expectations. Both Minnie and Sachin's mothers are the primary breadwinners. Sachin's father has quit his job and taken up baking full time. He's also started a circle where men can talk about harmful gender roles. On the other hand, we have a character like Daksh, whose election campaign platform pushes for a return to roots, who believes it's important for youngsters to unquestioningly obey and trust their elders and the government. Was this an active choice to hint at a generation of boys and young men who are growing up with resentment against what they see as woke culture?
Wow. Well, this is a tough question to answer. I have two teenage boys. They're 17 and 14 now. And I think one of the things, and so I think a lot about, especially in the last, like even after I've written the book, there's been so much discussion about the manosphere and young men and boys feeling alienated and who their role models are on social media and how they are pushing back against this kind of woke culture and how they're rejecting it and they feel that there's no place for them. So, these are all things I think about a lot. I think about what it is to raise boys who will become feminist men. And I think about that a lot. And I try and bring it into my conversations with my kids a lot. And sometimes they respond to it. And sometimes they're like, just be our mother. Don't be a feminist right now. We don't want to hear all of this. But I will still give it a shot. But I think I did want to show these contrasting kind of points of view because sometimes they exist in, our own families, they exist in our own classrooms, sometimes they exist within individuals. You can be someone who, and especially as you're growing up, because you are learning about these things, you're trying to make up your mind about these things, you're trying to understand some of these things better. And so you might say, yes, I mean, men and women are equal and they have equal rights and all of that. But then you might come up against something in your day-to-day interaction with someone which kind of makes you feel differently in that moment. And then, and Daksh is there. He's not a very he's not a big character in the book. But when he comes in and he says something and he does something, it's something usually like, what? Like, where did that come from? Who thinks like that? Who says things like that? And then he kind of disappears again and kind of goes into the woodwork. So, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for the thoughtful, considered response, Menaka. Speaking of a different sort of resentment, we have a question from Navya Uppal, Leela Iyer, Ayansh Gupta, grade 5 students from TPS RK Puram, New Delhi, and Step by Step School, Noida. They call themselves Team Bookivores. And they ask, while most of the clues seem to indicate that Vamsi sir was the one sabotaging Mini's election campaign, in the end, it is revealed that there is another mastermind pulling the strings. Why did you feel that this plot twist was necessary?
Thank you for that question. I think in the kind of books I like to read, mystery books, murder mysteries, kind of whodunit, or the kind of shows and movies I like to watch. When we watch as a family something together, I know all of us are trying to guess who is the bad person, who's the villain, who's done this terrible thing. And we're always trying to get there before the others are. So we can be like, I got it first. I said this, I knew it all along, kind of thing. And it's deeply irritating for everyone else. But I think I love books and shows and movies in which you're convinced it's this person and then it's someone completely who no one suspected at all. And like the reason for it is plausible, but it's still like, what? I never considered it could be that person. And I think that I really enjoy that in things that I read and watch. So I think this was an attempt to, I hope successfully do something like that for the reader with this book. Is that all along, it's like, oh my God, obviously it's Vamsi sir. Like he's so horrible. I mean, who else can it be? And then I'm hoping that when there is the reveal at the end, it is a surprise. And it's like, no, so yeah, it was just for that.
So we come to the last question of the day, which is also a student question. This is from Anvik Man Agarwal, a grade 5 student from Shiv Nadar School, Noida, who asks, why doesn't the book have a happy ending? Expanding on that question, we see that the book wraps up with the principal's email to the parents and a poster announcing the election results. At what point in the writing or the editing process did you decide to not show us the actual elections and the characters responding to the election results?
Yeah, great question. So the last few chapters of the book from that first draft. So this book was edited by Shani Basu Daktal, the brilliant editor. And the first draft that went to her actually went with, in my email, I said, I don't know what to do with this book anymore. So I'm here. You do something. You figure out now what to do because I'm stuck in certain points and you'll know what they are when you read them. But the last few chapters of the book actually went the book went through a lot of rewrites, but with the last few chapters did go through multiple rewrites, and each time it looked very different from the time before. We kept trying different things, and there were some things which I thought worked, which I only didn't think worked, and there are things that she suggested, "Do you want to try?" And then I would write it out, and it wasn't quite where it had to be. And actually, the kind of ending of the book as it is now with the poster and the email was Shayoni's idea, as most of really good things in the book are her ideas. And this is, I just want to take a small moment to kind of give a shout out to editors because all my editors have taken, what is the first draft and then really made my writing so much better with their insights and their ideas. And they're so behind the scenes. It's like author's name, illustrator's name on the cover of the book, but the editor's name is never there. So, they do so much amazing work behind the scenes and they're fabulous. And she kind of said, why don't we think of something like this? Do you want to try it? And then she said, try it. And if you don't like it, we'll go ahead with whatever you want. And so I really enjoyed writing the last few chapters of the book in that way, that kind of penultimate scene and the email and the poster. I mean, with regards to the happy, not happy ending, it's happy for some people, not happy for others. I think I only realized that as I was writing the poster. Till that moment, I hadn't kind of thought in my head who's going to win, who isn't. But at that moment, as I was writing it, it felt like the right thing to do. I think it's important. Sometimes you think you've done everything right. You've studied for the test, you've trained for the race, you've practiced for the audition, and then things still don't go your way, which is really hard and horrible. But unfortunately, such is life. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Menaka. That brings us to the end of the session. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for sticking with us through all of the technical glitches. We wish you all the very best with your next book. Bye.
Thank you so much, Zainab, and thank you, NLF Reading Challenge, and have fun reading the books, everyone.
Thank you. Our next author interaction is with award-winning author Andrea Wong, whose book, The Many Meanings of Meilan, is a part of the reading list for the 2025 NLF Reading Challenge. This will take place on Thursday, July 24th from 6:30 to 7 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Do keep an eye out for our email on the session or follow our social media handles. We look forward to seeing you there. Until we meet next, take care. Happy reading.